Facilities Management Index, the SFMI, has been championing best practice in the FM sector for a long time now. And I'm sure many of you are on there and have used on there as signatories or have used the case studies, etc. To talk to us about sustainability in FM, Programme Director of the SFMI, Chris Havers.
But yeah, thank you for the invitation, and welcome everyone. Everyone looks really smart as well. It's nice to be in a room full of smart-looking people again. I had a bit of a panic this morning when I got up here. I was like, God, I haven't worn my suit for 2 years. Did I get that red wine stain out from 2020? But yes, anyway. So the SFMI, we have been around for 10 years now, and we are purpose-led, I guess, a purpose-led product of an organisation called Aclara Advisory. And we run under the mission of embedding sustainability into the management and the operation of the FM industry. You've heard a lot about what the FM industry can offer, and we really believe that FM can have a real positive impact on the environment and on society in many ways. People are operating buildings, they're engaging with people on the ground. We've heard that the FM can be engaging with communities as well. We've got refurb projects, we've got purchasing of goods and services, and there's a lot of sustainable value which can be delivered through the FM services if we can overcome the challenges, which I'm sure many of you know. So what do? Traditionally, we've been focused around conducting assessments of FM providers in how they conduct sustainability, primarily through direct operations and also, very importantly, in the services that are delivered as well, which is where a lot of, ratings agencies fall foul, is that they only concentrate, or traditionally only concentrate, on those direct operations, whereas the FM has a relatively small direct operations, but actually on site amongst lots of other organisations and in and around other organisations' boundaries. So we conduct this annual assessment on businesses to give them, a comparable score on how they are implementing sustainability. But we also go a lot further. So we develop thought leadership as well through reports and research. And we conduct monthly webinars, quarterly forums as well, where we try and bring the FMs together, also with those in the purchasing side. So the in-house FM teams are also outsourcing services for their organisations, and we try and understand what are these key challenges that we're trying to overcome, and then we try and deliver solutions back to the industry. And then also we try and celebrate success as well as much as possible, because you've got to shout about it when you do something well, don't you? So I was asked to set the scene for Going Greener, for the Going Greener section. So what is a sustainable FM? Cynically speaking, there is no sustainable company out there currently today. I guess there are lots of definitions of what sustainability is. We've heard the terms ESG, sustainability, corporate responsibility. We can't properly settle on a lot of things. But as Georgina, I think, mentioned earlier, there are frameworks that we can use out there, international frameworks, which are the best place to start. But ultimately, I think we're looking at delivering an equilibrium between the impacts, the detrimental impacts that businesses have, and also how to overcome them with positives as well. So, a sustainable FM at this stage is an organisation, I believe, that manages the negatives, that is able to identify the negative impacts of its organisation, whether they be in the direct operations, the supply chain, or in the delivery of its services. So, when you're on site within other organisations' boundaries, what are the negative impacts that you're having. So you're able to understand what those are, and you're able to then put in place practices which are measuring this, but then also actions which are then starting to take action on and start to reduce these impacts. Now this involves a host of things, but ultimately it's a long journey of knowledge enhancement. It's a long journey of identifying gaps, about identifying where data is, uncovering all this information, building effective strategies, which is going to start to pick away at the many different streams of sustainability that we've identified. There's data collection, analysis, setting targets, good disclosure as well. But also there's a lot of it is around embedding a sustainable culture within organizations. I think it's great when I hear people like George, who was speaking earlier, saying that, I looked at the volunteering rates of my organization and I realized it's just plateaued and it's not good. And so what we're going to do is we're going to understand how we can do it better. It's great when I go into a company and I hear someone who is in an organization and they're saying, openly, this wasn't good, but this is how we've approached it to do something better. And that's what we want to be seeing. So I will get a little bit into how we look at sustainability shortly. But what are the drivers for a sustainable FM as well? Now, there's a lot of, I've kind of tried to summarize them, but a lot of them are all interweaving at the moment. And it's all quite exciting, really, especially for someone in my world. So we have stakeholders, key stakeholders. You've got your employees, a key stakeholder. We've heard already before that we've got people who want to work for purpose-driven organizations. So attracting the top talent for an organization requires an approach which is going to attract that, because people are becoming more purpose-driven in where they want to work. Got investors. There is a huge drive at the moment for ESG from the investment level. Great pension funds, again, going back to a previous slide. You've got people like Larry Fink who's the CEO of BlackRock, making annual statements talking about, the next 1,000 unicorns of this world that we're investing in will be organizations who are creating solutions to sustainability problems like climate change, for example. That goes a long way, because it's not going to be the next 1,000 unicorns of the world, according to Larry Fink, won't be your social media companies that we're used to. It will be about solutions providers. Obviously, we see FM as solutions providers as well. Customers, there's a huge drive from customers. I'm sure many of you are looking at tenders, looking down the list and seeing, okay, I need a carbon reduction plan. What is this? What do I need to do? You've got social value requirements. You've got, do you have a science-based target, et cetera, et cetera. It's all starting to build up from both the public sector as well as the private sector. And then you've got communities as well. These are the people within the communities that you're working within who contribute to the reputation of the organization. And reputation is becoming very important, even more in the interconnected world of social media. We've seen many organizations suddenly have a flurry of negative, detrimental negative media coverage, and this rapidly spreads very quickly. So when you're working within a world of such interconnectivity, managing that reputation becomes a key driver. So these are kind of the key stakeholders, and then you have these other interlinking issues. So you've got the reputation of the organization, which I mentioned before. You have certifications out there which can help the organization understand the roadmap that they're on. You've got the idea of becoming a purpose-driven organization, a values-driven organization, gaining better ratings out there. And then also, what's quite important is aligning with customer values as well, because what we see is a real drive from, and this goes back, I think, to Martin, what you were saying earlier about, the value of FM, and it's, about the cost value, because we see that there's a higher value to the services if it can be aligned with the customer values in particular. And so the more and more organizations which are setting science-based targets, that are setting social value strategies, and you're able to align with those and actually provide added value from that, then that actually represents a higher value for the services that are being delivered. Legislation, that's backing things up, and customer requirements as well. All of these are all kind of adding together into this big framework of drivers for the FM to become more sustainable. Okay. Okay, so how do we work then? So we are we set a roadmap for sustainability for FM providers in particular. And this works from a strategic level, so we want to be seeing the strategic governance at the very top, understanding what the material issues are to the organisation, getting involved the board members, getting key knowledge and understanding into that board so then they can drive things from the top down, understanding what the risks and opportunities are to the organisation. And this will drip into the operational level and the service level side as well. And then also we have a keen interest in what the supply chain impacts are and how the organisation is measuring sustainable value from that supply chain. And so what we do when we assess an organisation is we break sustainability into 23 criteria. 9 of those criteria sit within the governance level, which tends to work at that strategic management level. 7 of the criteria work within the social remit. So here we're looking at things such as social value, sustainable communities, diversity and inclusion, employee development and well-being. And then we have the environmental section, the environmental criteria, which will cover the likes of energy management, water management, circular economy, biodiversity, and a couple of others are interwound into there. So, so I think really what we find actually is when we're going in and we're assessing organisations, is we have a number of organisations who have been under that assessment year on year, and what we see and understand is that they go on this journey of understanding, and they always admit to the fact that they never stop learning as well, because ultimately the goalposts of sustainability are always shifting. And you may think that that's a negative thing to say, I can never achieve this sustainable ambition of what I want to achieve. But actually we learn more every single year, and we learn new methods, and we learn new techniques, and we learn about new interactivities between different sustainability related criteria. So actually that journey of sustainability becomes an ever-present situation, and it's really exciting to be working within from my point of view as well, because there's always something new which you can understand, and actually that creates a lot of job satisfaction, quite frankly. So what are the big trends and topics for FM? We've heard a little bit about some of them already today. So I guess the first big trend from our point of view is net zero. So we're working not just with FM organisations, but also businesses from finance, from technology, from the public sector, and others. And the common thread at the moment is net zero. Businesses need a net zero plan because, as I mentioned, those drivers earlier. But there are many different types of plans which have been created and disclosed. And these all boil down to different business cultures, different ambitions from the organisations. Some just want to comply, some want to be leaders, some want to be the best, some want to involve as little as possible, some want to make sure that they've covered every single base because of the reputational impacts that they may have, that a kind of a lackluster plan may have on their business. But a lot of it actually, what we're seeing in a trend is that the difference is, a big difference is how these plans are being communicated externally. And what we're really driving for is higher transparency in what these plans what make up these particular plans, because a higher level of transparency gives greater confidence in the plan that's been provided. More data that's being delivered externally, more disclosure around it. It all just brings a much bigger picture of your organisation in particular. And that's important, again, when it comes to alignment with the customers, because I guess you deliver a tender, and the first thing they're going to do is look at the information that's publicly disclosed. And if that information doesn't have the detail and it doesn't provide them with the confidence, then that means obviously that they're not going to have the confidence in what you're proposing. And then also, and this really aligns with the scope of net zero as well. What we've seen in the last couple of years, again, is that when organisations from the FM industry are disclosing their emissions base, it comes with again, lots of different levels of what falls into that scope of emissions. I won't get into the technical details, but ultimately you have your direct emissions, and then you have your indirect emissions. So a lot of businesses will concentrate just solely on those direct in-house. We've got our fleet of vehicles, we've got our buildings, and that's it. But actually there's a whole host of extra emissions which come because your organisation is operating. So these are the purchased goods and services of the organisation, the capital goods, the travel of the employees, all of these different elements. And what we want to be seeing is a wider scope of that transparency. But then also that what we're going to be looking at going into the future is how can the other environmental issues start to feed into this net zero plan? It's not so much the data at this stage, because when we have issues such as massive loss of biodiversity, especially in the UK, but also globally, then what is the FM industry doing to encourage biodiversity on the sites that it's managing? And how can this start to be fed into that net zero plan? The next trend that we're predicting for the year is around that supply chain management piece. Again, it can be very much linked into that, into the net zero trend, but also wider social issues that occur in the supply chain. What we have been finding is that the supply chain understanding when it comes to environmental and social issues is not particularly high level, and so we have seen that companies are starting to make a play on this though, and we're going to be seeing that companies are going further than just setting this minimum standard of entry into that supply chain, whereby you tick a few boxes, you provide a couple of policies and a couple of certificates, and you're in. Actually, what we're going to be seeing now is companies really drive, this is our minimum level, this is where we want companies to be. And it's about how they're engaging with their supply chain in order to get them from minimum up to that desired level. And especially when it comes to what the customer of the provider wants, because there's a lot of value and innovation that can be galvanized from the supply chain. And so it's about engaging with key suppliers in order to deliver that extra value, which can then, again, help the organization align with its customers and start to deliver greater value to its customers using that supply chain. And then finally, the final trend would be really developing the collaboration of the industry so that it can expand its influence within the building life cycle. It was great to see the speaker from UK GBC here earlier, but I do think that there's a lack of understanding of what FM does in that building life cycle, and a lot of it is focused around the embodied carbon within the construction of buildings. But actually, FM has a great impact within that operational management of the building. And so if the industry can actually kind of pull together and actually engage with that building life cycle, the building life cycle stakeholders, then actually it can raise the importance of what FM does in terms of the operation and the maintenance. And actually it can have a greater voice in what those key impacts that it has on. And then that information can then be collected through the necessary data inputs, the necessary technologies, and actually utilized in order to guide and really cut that performance gap between what's planned, what's constructed, and then how that building actually operates to the operational effectiveness of what it's meant to do. So we're seeing we really want to be helping to drive that collective voice forward. And we'll be doing that through some key research projects going into the future. So, how am I doing on time? Am I okay? Yeah. Cool. So, important standards really to help drive that collective voice and that collective, kind of unified way of doing things. We have embarked on a project to deliver a standard to help FMs measure their Scope 3 emissions. So this is their indirect emissions, which is often overlooked. But importantly, it's about measuring the indirect emissions that an organization has, but then it's about communicating that information to the customer so that you can provide guidance to say, okay, these are the emissions that we have within the services that we provide. And this is how this information fits in with your zero carbon plan. So you can actually factor the importance of the FM work that we conduct into your zero carbon planning. We're also working on a collaborative venture with our partners, which will be helping to deliver a roadmap for sustainable FM. And this will be set in minimum industry standards for organizations who are starting their journey, but then also setting that maximum level, this is your key ambition. Sorry, I've had a screen malfunction here. And then also we will be looking at driving standards in other kind of less well-known topics, particularly within the green section, the environmental section. We'll be looking at biodiversity as an area that FM can have a key input. And what also are the disclosure standards that FM should be driving for in order to create that kind of level platform to say, this is the FM sector, these are the key requirements that it can disclose, these are the boundaries, and this is how the FM sector can move forward as a whole. So that's me. That's the, there we go. I'll go in here. There. One more. So yes, so these are the organizations that we're currently working with. So we have a loyal following of organizations which come to us and they say, help us to understand how we perform in sustainability, help us to understand what our gaps are, and help us to understand how we can move forward. And so these are the organizations which are part of the SFMI. And then on the left, and then on the right, this is the current kind of leading signatories of the SFMI as well. So these are the organizations who are procuring FM services and saying, you know what, this is actually important to us. We see holistic sustainability management within our FM services, and we want to be seeing this within the services that we're procuring. So we're looking at building up both sides of the party, and then also bringing them together through our collaborative forums and our webinars. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.